Guillermo Arriola was shot and killed by Dean Cummings. There's no dispute in that. So the question before the court, before the jury, isn't who killed him, but why.
You're going to determine whether or not Mr. Cummings' actions were reasonable on that day when he shot and killed Mr. Arriola with an AR-15 rifle when he only had mace.
With this case, it's not real complicated. The defense had to prove it was self-defense, and the state had to prove that it was not self-defense. That's what it boiled down to.
911, what's your emergency?
So the reason I'm calling is I ran into a guy here who said he was attacked at a ranch, and he wound up pulling a gun and shooting the guy who attacked him.
Mr. Cummings had been in the process of buying the ranch from Mr. Arriola. And while they were talking, the conversation went from being casual and somewhat friendly into a really heated exchange rather quickly.
I started calling him out, saying, look, are you trying to scam me on this deal, or what's your problem? And that really blew him off the top. That really made him angry.
Does he know if the other male's still alive?
Do you know if the guy is alive? He says no.
He says he's dead?
Yes.
On that day, February 29th, 2020, David McCullough was just out riding his motorcycle in Sandoval County, New Mexico. It is remote. I mean, you basically have horses and cows. And while he was doing that, he saw a man flagging him down from a distance. And that man approached him and started talking to him. And that man was Dean Cummings.
He said, I'm in a little bit of trouble and I need some help. He says, I just shot a man and I've tried to call the authorities, but I can't get cell service. If you have cell service, can you call them for me?
Mr. Cummings took Mr. McCullough back to the ranch and showed him the body. The body was Guillermo Arriola.
What did he look like?
I wish I had taken his picture. He wanted me to go down and take a look, and he wanted me to be a witness. A witness? There's a dead body.
Mr. McCullough called 911, but the scene was 3 hours away from our office. When police arrived, they took over the processing of the entire crime scene.
But when officers arrived at the scene, Cummings allegedly refused to identify himself to officers. He did, however, tell them he'd been sprayed with some chemical substance and what he did immediately after the shooting.
I walk outside, my face felt really cold and it was stinging a bit on my face. So when I started washing myself, with the side of my head, washed my hair, washed the side of my skin, and then I put a new shirt on.
This is, until proven otherwise, a murder investigation. We have to treat everything like a murder investigation because we don't know exactly what happened. If that's self-defense, you'll walk out of here. If that's murder, you'll go to jail. There was no evidence of a fight or a confrontation within the trailer. Mr. Arriola had a small can of what appeared to be mace. However, the significant part of that is the nozzle was facing towards Mr. Arriola, not as if you were going to spray it outward. While at the scene, Mr. Cummings was closely physically examined and photographed, and there was no evidence at all that a pepper spray or a mace had been sprayed.
There were 2 gunshot wounds on Mr. Arriola's body. There was a gunshot wound on the right temporal region of the head. The second gunshot wound was above the right collarbone. Based on the autopsy findings and the investigative circumstances surrounding death, Mr. Guillermo Arriola's death was ruled as a homicide.
Almost 3 years after the death of Guillermo Arriola, Dean Cummings is taking the stand to plead his case of self-defense.
I thought Dean did really well on this stand. He was able to really explain and stood firm on this is what happened and this is the truth.
Everyone is impressed with how Dean Cummings performed under direct examination from his own attorney. But Can he maintain that composure under cross-examination?
So when a defendant takes a stand, they're going to have to account for everything that all of us have been proven or not proving throughout the trial.
The prosecution made a big deal about the fact that the mace canister was not turned in a position that you would have expected. However, what Dean was saying happened was that Mr. Arreola was using the canister like a blunt object and hitting him on the head. While he was being struck, something came out of it that caused him to start gasping and his eyes started burning. And so the position of the canister was actually consistent with what Mr. Cummings described as happening. Besides, the physical evidence right in the immediate vicinity where the body was found indicates there was no tampering. If you move a body that's bleeding out, you're gonna disrupt the blood. That didn't happen.
But in a surprising twist, the prosecution opts to have Dean Cummings physically act out what happened that day in an attempt to prove his story doesn't line up with the physical evidence.
I would like you to sit down, with permission, and show me how you were holding the gun and what Mr. Arreola was doing. I'll be Mr. Arreola.
The purpose of pulling the defendant off the stand and putting the gun in their hands is to show the jury, doesn't he look scary standing there holding this gun? And then of course she was trying to trip him up on some of the details of what happened.
Describe how the struggle started.
I went to the hallway like this. He's coming down and he's swinging with his right hand. I've got this like this. I hit me again, so I fall down again. I'm down.
And all this time he's coming at you.
Yeah, the whole
He's
time.
coming at you like
The whole
this.
time I'm blocking you.
Yeah, yeah. And when did you
Then he grabs the gun.
How did you chamber the rounds?
I didn't do that yet.
Okay.
So he grabs the gun, so
Where do you grab it?
right there on the barrel.
Right here. Right here. Yeah.
Don't scramble. He's swinging, he's grabbing with his other hand.
With his other hand.
And he grabs with his hand.
His left hand? Oh. And what's he doing with this hand?
He's swinging that canister.
Okay.
So I'm blocking everything. And he grabs his jacket here and that way he can pull it on.
Okay. Yeah.
And what?
And then when did he chamber it? How did he chamber
Okay,
it?
so then I got the gun out of his hand. He's down in the bathroom entrance. I pulled this
He's
back.
still coming at you?
No, he stood back.
Oh, you stood back a second.
I'm gonna do this. I said, stop.
Okay. So you chamber around and then he keeps coming towards you?
Yes, and he slams into me, knocks me in the back bedroom. I'm on the ground now, in the back bedroom, I'm laying this way. He's coming through the doorway. I'm like this. I'm trying to back and he's coming right over the top of me, swinging at me with the canister. And I'm like this. He's got a hold of the gun by the scope at this point. I think he pulled the gun against the trigger. Boom, boom, 2 shots went off. I get up to here, and the rest of the shots were fired from about that level.
Mr. Arreola still coming at you?
He was swinging at me like a leader.
Yeah, like this?
Yep,
When did he shoot?
he's over me.
Yeah?
Exactly.
Yeah. He's leaned over you.
He was,
Never on his hands and knees?
not that I can recall.
Can you hand the verdict forms to my bailiff? The verdicts read as follows. We find the defendant, Dean Cummings, not guilty of second-degree murder and voluntary manslaughter. Mr. Cummings, you've been found not guilty of these charges. You are exonerated of all conditions of the court.
The jury got it right in this case because all of the physical evidence corroborates what Mr. Cummings was saying, that he acted in self-defense.
After being locked up for 2.5 years, nothing was better than meeting my sister and my mom outside the prison. That was just incredible. Want to go to dinner? Yeah, of course. Let's go have some dinner. Let's go eat some real food for a change. Ordered a steak, a Jameson, ginger ale, whiskey, and yeah, to sit there with people you love and be free. It's incredible. Just the love you have for people that you care about is amplified 100 times over.